Alex didn't show up again. For what was supposed to be our ninth engagement banquet, he didn't even send a text message with an excuse this time. What he didn't know was that this ninth time was also going to be the last time. The special notebook he had given me, our wish list, was now officially void. I didn't want him anymore. Much later, he would kneel in front of me, holding up that same notebook, his voice shaking as he begged, "Clara, can you give me one more chance?" But on that night, I stood at the entrance in my white gown, ignoring my parents' pleas to come inside. The hands on the clock had already ticked past 11. I had tried calling him countless times, but at first, the calls just rang out, and then eventually, it seemed his phone was turned off. The charade finally ended when Alex's good friend Mark appeared. He shuffled his feet and passed along a message from Alex, his expression a mixture of guilt and awkwardness. "Clara," he started, unable to meet my eyes. "Alex might have something going on." The air grew tense. I twisted the delicate fabric of my dress between my fingers, a nervous habit I'd developed over years of this. But in the end, I simply nodded. I turned away from him and walked with purpose towards the stage set up in the grand hall. The people filling the room were all our relatives and friends, and by now they were used to this scenario. None of them would have dared to refuse the invitation, because Alex himself had sent one out for each of these 9 failed celebrations. I took the microphone from the MC, and my voice, amplified by the sound system, carried to every corner of the room. I used to begin these moments by apologizing to everyone, I said, my voice steady. But today, I added, pausing for effect, I want to add something at the end. Please be witnesses for me. From this day forward, Alex and I are breaking up. We are never, ever getting back together. After I said the words, I was surprised to find that I didn't feel the crushing sadness I had anticipated. Instead, an overwhelming sense of relief washed over me. This twisted, painful relationship had finally reached its conclusion. I knew, however, that not a single person in that audience believed me. After all, they had all seen with their own eyes the humiliation I had endured for Alex time and time again. They seemed to forget that it was Alex who had professed his undying love for me in the first place. I scanned the crowd, taking in their various expressions of pity and disbelief. My parents immediately rushed to my side. My mother looked at me with tears welling in her eyes, her face a mask of compassion and worry. I gave them a reassuring look before making my way over to Mark. He was on the phone and looking anxious. I knew exactly who was on the other end of that call, the one person I couldn't seem to reach. It turned out his phone wasn't off, and the calls weren't failing to connect. He had simply blocked my number. When Mark saw me approaching, he composed himself, his face shifting into a look that said, I knew this was coming. I didn't care what he was thinking. I reached out and took the phone from his hand. "Tell me where you are right now," I said into the receiver. The voice on the other end, which was suddenly confronted with the person he least wanted to speak to, fell silent. He was trying his usual tactic. Stay quiet, let me give in first, and then pretend none of this ever happened. I lowered my voice, my tone turning icy. "I don't want to argue with you, Alex. Just tell me where you are. I have something to discuss with you." The call was abruptly hung up. A moment later, however, an address popped up as a text message on Mark's phone. I grabbed my car keys, ready to drive over. Mark tried to stop me, putting on a helpful smile. "Clara, let me drive you," he offered. I bypassed him completely. "No thanks." Mark didn't seem to suspect anything, likely thinking I still needed someone to get me home later. But only I knew my real reason. I didn't want to have to call a cab back from where I was going. The location Alex had sent was a bar. The people lingering by the entrance were already accustomed to the sight of me showing up in a formal gown, so they paid me no mind. I navigated through the dimly lit space until I reached the door of a private room. The door was wide open. Inside, I saw Alex lounging on a plush couch with a girl nestled in his arms. I walked straight in, and the boisterous revelry in the room came to a sudden halt. Mark had followed me in and was now trying to offer a weak explanation. "We haven't all gotten together as a group in a while," he stammered. "Alex just missed hanging out with us." "Missed it for so long?" I shot back, my words sharp. "It's been less than a day, and you miss each other this much." My harsh tone made Mark's face go pale. He clearly hadn't expected me to be so uncompromising tonight. Alex's gaze had been fixed on me since the moment I walked in. When he saw me verbally sparring with Mark, his expression just grew a shade colder, but he didn't say a word. I walked right up to him and took the wish list notebook from my purse. In front of him, I took out a pen and, without a moment's hesitation, viciously crossed out the last remaining star on the page. Alex frowned, looking at me with confusion. "What are you trying to do now?" he asked, his voice laced with annoyance. I shook my head and pushed the notebook towards him. "This wish list," I said clearly. "You gave it to me. I don't want it anymore. And you, Alex, I don't want you anymore either." The atmosphere in the room turned frigid. Alex's deep, dark eyes remained unchanged, as if I hadn't just announced our breakup but had merely asked him what he wanted for dinner. In the tense silence, only the unfamiliar girl in the room dared to speak. She sneered at me from the comfort of Alex's embrace. "Alex, you see?" she cooed. "Anyone and everyone dares to try and seduce you, resorting to pathetic little tricks like this. It's so ridiculous, isn't it?" As people around her murmured in agreement, they looked at her with an expression of sympathy. In the next moment, Alex, without a trace of emotion, kicked her off his lap and onto the ground. The beautiful girl moaned in pain on the floor, but Alex just ordered coldly, "Get her out of here." One moment she was being cradled like a priceless treasure, and the next she was being discarded like worthless trash. That was Alex. He could insult and humiliate me, but he would never allow anyone else to disrespect me in the slightest way. I had always known that, in his own twisted way, he loved me. Yet it was this alternating hot and cold love that had kept me hesitating for so long, unable to let go. The girl was dragged out of the room, and Alex turned his gaze back to me. "You want to break up with me?" I didn't respond directly. "You broke the promise," I replied. "It was you who didn't keep your word." The word promise seemed to be a trigger for him. As I turned and walked out of the private room, I heard the sound of glass shattering behind me. When I glanced back, I was met with his mocking gaze. The broken bottle lay on the floor, its contents soaking the wish list notebook he had just tossed aside. Walking out of the bar, I saw a text from my parents checking on me. I replied, "Everything is fine," and got into my car. But as I sat in the driver's seat, I hesitated to start the engine. Instead, I found myself involuntarily glancing up at the sky through the window. The sun had set, but the early evening light was warm and gentle, just like it had been on the day Alex first confessed his feelings to me. The shy, boyish look in his eyes was still so vivid in my memory. He had been embarrassed, but had tried so hard to act casual as he handed me a small, leather-bound book. "Clara," he had said, "I know I have a bad temper and a lot of bad habits. I'm giving you this wish list. If I do something that makes you happy, draw a star on a page. If I make you sad, cross one out. I promise I'll make you happier more often than I make you sad." He had said it so sincerely back then, and for a while he kept his word. There were very few stars crossed out in my notebook in the beginning. How could I not have been moved by this rebellious yet deeply caring boy who seemed to hold me at the very center of his world? But later, even though the love was still there, he never truly trusted me. And because of a forced agreement between us that was broken, none of the promises he made to me afterward seemed to count. That included our engagement, which he always initiated but never actually attended. He was perpetually punishing me for my past faults with his broken promises. It often made me wonder if we really loved each other. If we did, why did we have to torment each other like this? But I didn't want to think about it anymore. I turned the steering wheel and left all those memories behind in the bar's parking lot. From now on, the name Clara no longer needed to be followed by the name Alex. When I walked into my house, my parents were sitting anxiously in the living room waiting for me. As soon as they saw me, they quickly stood up to check if I was all right. They guided me to the sofa. "Clara," my mom began tentatively, "what about you and Alex this time? You've broken up for good and you won't get back together, right?" Saying the sentence again, this time to them, I felt even more relieved. My mom, however, couldn't help but burst into tears. She touched my hair with a look of profound affection. "It's our fault," she sobbed. "If it wasn't for you going abroad for the sake of the family, you and Alex would have been fine." Even my typically reserved father couldn't hold back his tears. I shook my head and said, seriously, even without that incident, Alex and I wouldn't have lasted long. Breaking up with him wasn't a hasty decision. It's something I've considered for a long time. He was possessive and territorial, like a lion, while I was like an eagle, always aspiring to fly to higher places. We were both incredibly strong-willed, and neither of us was willing to truly compromise for the other. Our fundamentally different ideologies would only continue to grind away at whatever love we had left for each other. That night, I lay in bed, looking at the stars outside my window. During the 2 years I was abroad, I had looked at those same stars every night, thinking of Alex back home. We had promised each other we would be together, always. That all changed after the college entrance examination, when my beloved older brother was in a terrible car accident. We were never able to find the person responsible, and our family fell into a deep state of grief. My brother, who was 6 years older than me, had already taken over the family company. My parents, who had me and my brother later in life, were now struggling in their old age. With my brother gone, various forces began eyeing our family's business. I couldn't just stand by and let my parents' hard-earned company be taken away. So, after locking myself in my room for a few days, I told my parents decisively that I wanted to study business management abroad. Alex was the last one to find out about my decision. I thought he would unconditionally support me, but I never expected him to react so strongly. That's when we began our first real Cold War. It lasted until the day I was scheduled to fly to the United States. Alex stopped me at the airport. He begged me to stay, saying that he would go crazy facing his family and his own demanding brother alone, without me by his side. He said he could help me, that we could figure it out together. Despite how much I loved him at the time, the immense weight of my family's responsibilities was on my shoulders. In the heat of our argument, I said the harshest words I had ever said to him. "Alex, do you want to force me to become a prisoner living only for you?" The next day, I went to the office early. A large bouquet of red roses was sitting on my desk. There was no signature, but I knew who it was from. Every time Alex broke a promise, he would follow it up with some small, charming favor to try and cheer me up. I used to be touched by these gestures. But now, after truly deciding to end things, I saw them from an outsider's perspective. All these gestures didn't require much effort at all. They were things that could be arranged with a single phone call. Expressionless, I instructed my assistant to have the flowers returned, untouched. I also told her, any gifts from Alex in the future are not allowed to be brought into this office. That includes him. For several days, I returned every item Alex sent me. He then started calling me. I had no intention of picking up. As the calls became more frequent, I found them annoying and eventually just blocked his number, just as he had done to me countless times before. So, his calls ended up being routed to my assistant. Holding the buzzing phone, my assistant looked embarrassed. I took the phone from her hand and hung it up directly. I then ordered our IT department to have his number blocked by everyone in the company. As time went on, I knew a proud person like Alex wouldn't continue to bother himself with someone who so clearly wanted nothing to do with him. Unknowingly, 2 months had passed since I had last seen or even thought about Alex. During this time, Alex's family held a large banquet and invited many people from the city's business and social circles. It was Alex who had organized the event. Initially, I was not on the invitation list, but Alex's older brother, Daniel, noticed my absence. He personally brought the invitation to my doorstep to apologize. I graciously said it was not a big deal. We were all business people. Only someone like Alex would bring personal emotions into professional matters. At the banquet, I wore a stunning red haute couture dress, a stark contrast to the countless white gowns I had worn before. I loved red, but Alex liked white. On such trivial matters, I would always defer to him. Because of my family status, I just had to stand there, and people would naturally come over to talk to me, raising a glass in greeting. Suddenly, a champagne flute was raised in front of me. Daniel smiled warmly, his eyes sparkling. "Clara, you look beautiful today. he said. Then he bowed elegantly like a perfect gentleman. Miss Clara, would you do me the honor of dancing with me? Although Alex and I had broken up by then, I had no desire to get involved with his family again. I politely declined with a raised glass of my own. I am not very good at dancing, so I will spare you the embarrassment. I'll take a drink myself, but you go ahead. With that, I raised my glass and drank it all. Then would you like to dance with me, I wonder? Alex's voice cut through the air. He walked out from the crowd, his words clearly directed at me, but his eyes fixed on Daniel, full of provocation. I tried hard to keep my composure. I am not good at dancing, I repeated. Alex seemed not to understand the meaning behind my words. I'll teach you, he insisted. Come with me. He was about to come over and take my hand. Although the people around us were still chatting, their eyes kept glancing in our direction, sensing the drama. Facing this farce, the instigator himself remained completely oblivious. I suddenly felt it was all so boring. I didn't want to care about saving Alex's face anymore. I stepped aside, letting his hand grasp at empty air. Don't you understand yet, Alex? I don't want to dance with you. He was stunned for a moment, his previously tense face showing genuine confusion. Why? He asked. Under his intense gaze, I lifted the hem of my skirt and took a few steps back. Because I don't like you anymore. I didn't stay until the end of the banquet. I apologized to Daniel, telling him I wasn't feeling well and left early. It was only when I walked out of Alex's family home and breathed in the fresh night air that I felt like I had come back to life. If it weren't for the numerous business collaborations between our families, I would never want to set foot in that place again. The driver was waiting at the curb and quickly opened the car door for me. I felt completely drained of energy, walking wearily toward the car. But just as I lifted my foot to get in, a large hand grabbed me firmly by the wrist. The grip was so tight that it sent a sharp pain up my arm and I couldn't help but cry out. Alex showed no intention of letting go. His eyes were bloodshot as he stared at me. What do you mean you don't like me anymore? He demanded. I tried to push him away, but it was futile. The pain made my blood rush to my head. I raised my other hand and slapped him hard across the face. Taking advantage of his momentary shock, I quickly got into the car and locked the door. I rolled down the window, looked at his stunned face, and spoke each word with chilling clarity. Yes, I don't like you anymore. Alex, someone who tramples on genuine feelings deserves nothing. Only at that moment did Alex seem to finally realize that I might really not want him anymore. He began to frantically pound on the car window, but I signaled for the driver to go, leaving him behind to chase after us in the rearview mirror. The driver glanced back at me. Are you really not going to care about Mr. Alex? I shook my head and closed my eyes, trying to shut out the world. But the faint, dull pain in my heart made me painfully aware that I couldn't completely numb my feelings just yet. How could I not hurt? I had loved Alex for so many years. I glanced around at the people on the street who were starting to look our way, not wanting to make a scene. Let's find a cafe, I said, my voice low but firm. I'll talk to you there. Once we were seated, the waiter came to our table. 2 iced Americanos, Alex ordered automatically, then looked at me. No, I said, correcting him. I want a cappuccino. Alex looked surprised. When did you change your taste? I just shook my head. I didn't suddenly change. I've liked it from the beginning. So why do you always... Alex began. But he trailed off as he seemed to remember something, and his face suddenly changed. He turned away, avoiding my gaze. But I wasn't going to spare his feelings anymore. Because you've never asked me, I said flatly. You just assumed I would like the same things as you. A hint of regret flashed in his eyes, and he looked like he was about to apologize. I cut him off directly. Just like how I like the color red and you like white. I'm dedicated to building my career while you prefer to play. I like to explore new places while you prefer to stay here. Alex's face became even more unpleasant. He wanted to brush this all off with a light apology, but I was hitting him right where it hurt. Alex, I have always been the one to compromise for you. My string of accusations provoked him, or maybe he was just always a prickly person by nature. Only now, his spikes were directed squarely at me. You talk about compromising? What about when you went to the United States? Why didn't you compromise for me then? Do you have any idea how I managed those past 2 years all by myself? Every time things didn't go his way, he brought up the past. My expression turned cold. I didn't forbid you from coming abroad, I countered. In fact, I said you could come see me as often as you wanted. It was you who kept stalling. You always act like those 2 years were so tough for you. Did you ever once stop to think about how I got through those 2 years? I had never complained about my struggles in front of him. I always thought we were the same kind of people. Both of us were hustling for our livelihood, both defending our family's legacy, both wanting to climb higher so we could meet at the peak. I thought we would understand each other. But in one matter after another, I found out that Alex was just an unreliable person. I could push myself to achieve what was necessary for my family, but Alex, you are still someone who needs to compete with your own brother for business. Now, I said, looking him straight in the eye, you're no longer worthy of me. With that said, I picked up my bag, ready to leave. But Alex suddenly lunged forward and knelt on the floor in front of me. He raised a familiar notebook he had taken out from his jacket at some point. Our wish list. His voice trembled. Clara, can you give me one more chance? At that exact moment, our coffees arrived. I picked up my cappuccino and, without a second thought, poured it from top to bottom over his wishful notebook. Looking at Alex's pale, shocked face, my words cruelly etched themselves onto his heart. Now not only are you not worthy of me, but I also look down on you. The phone rang. It was my assistant. I picked it up and her anxious voice came through. Clara, are you really going to sell all those formal dresses? Sell them all, I instructed. Donate the money to the mountainous regions in the name of the company. Oh, and prepare me some more red dresses. The closet is looking too empty. I hung up the phone and stared at the closet, which was full of white gowns, and at the 9 formal dresses hanging neatly in a row. It should have been 10. Only the 10th dress Alex had failed to deliver to me. The first time Alex stood me up was at our very first engagement banquet. Before that, we were like any normal dating couple. We would go to the movies. We would take walks by the river for a breeze. It was almost as if he was just pretending to be a normal boyfriend only to humiliate me at the engagement party. He had hugged my waist, taken my hand, and put a diamond ring on my finger, whispering in my ear, Clara, I really want to marry you. Will you marry me? I was ecstatic that day, and I waited for a very long time. At the wedding venue, our parents were obviously anxious, trying to make excuses for Alex's absence. Then, someone in the crowd screamed. The big screen at the back of the stage lit up with a photo of Alex hugging another girl with an address displayed below it. I couldn't believe my eyes. I left everyone behind and took a taxi to that bar. I can't forget the way people looked at me at the bar entrance that day, a bride in a gown, alone. I can't forget the look on Alex's face when I found him. He said, You left me once, so I'll leave you once, and we'll be even. I lost control that day. I lost my phone on the way there, so I just wandered into the heavy rain in a daze, wearing the formal dress. After that, every time he stood me up, he wouldn't even bother to give me a reason. But he would always keep trying to make it up to me and act regretful at other times. Looking back on it now, I was like a fool, played around by him. And that wish list notebook had become nothing more than the countdown to our breakup. In my office, I was typing away on my computer when my assistant knocked on the door. Clara, someone's here to see you. I lifted my sore neck from the screen and gestured for her to let the person in. He was dressed in a sharp black suit, his figure well-defined. I was quite surprised to see him. Daniel. Since I had blocked Alex, his brother Daniel had become our primary point of contact for business matters. Unlike the flamboyant and volatile Alex, Daniel had always been very stable, professional, and courteous. I never believed that a straightforward person like Daniel would be targeting Alex for control of their company. He was disdainful of such games, but Alex had never liked Daniel, so I had always kept my distance from him out of respect for Alex's feelings. I invited him to sit down. He took a seat without hesitation and spoke before I could even ask why he was there. Alex has been very desolate since he came back from the cafe that night, he said. He's been getting drunk with his friends every night. Father asked me to inquire about the situation, so I had no choice but to come and ask you. He really is useless, I muttered, turning back to my computer to message a client. Daniel didn't speak again, just waited patiently on the side. After a while, when I had typed the last word of my email, I looked up and saw Daniel still sitting there, perfectly upright. I felt a headache coming on and pinched the bridge of my nose. Is this all you wanted to ask? David shook his head. Of course not. Shall I leave now? I coldly gave him the boot, but Daniel walked up to my desk. Are you sure you want me to leave? He asked. Surprisingly, his expression held a hint of sorrow. I shivered with goosebumps. Luckily, Daniel wasn't pushy. He stopped and handed a folder to me, his expression turning serious. Take a look at this. You'll find what you're looking for inside. But you should be prepared before you open it. I glanced at him, then took the folder. Why all the mystery? But with just a quick glance at the first page, I froze in place. Make way, don't stop me. I'm Clara's boyfriend. I want to see why Daniel came here. The office door was pushed open forcefully. My assistant was knocked off balance and looked at me for help. Clara! A large crowd of employees had gathered around the office entrance. Alex stormed in, pointing a finger at Daniel and yelling, What are you doing here? Clara is mine. Her business doesn't need you, and Clara doesn't need you either. I stepped forward and stood between Alex and Daniel. Alex paused for a moment, then tried to grab me, saying, Clara, come with me. You can't be with him. I lowered my head and dodged his hand. Daniel spoke up. I don't think Clara wants to see you right now, do you? Alex was furious and tried to grab me again. The noisy office suddenly fell silent. A bright red handprint appeared on Alex's face. My hand was numb from the force of the slap, but I didn't stop. Alex finally reacted, grabbing my wrist and asking through gritted teeth, Clara, what are you doing? When our eyes met, seeing the look in mine, he hesitated and subconsciously let go of my hand. I took the opportunity to slap him again across the other cheek. Alex held his face and backed away from me. I closed in on him, my eyes burning with a hatred so intense I wished I could unleash all my anger on him right then and there. I squeezed my own palm hard, using the sharp pain to suppress the overwhelming emotions churning in my heart. I told him, word by word, Alex, you have to pay for my brother's death. As the police car disappeared down the street, Alex was still cursing at Daniel. It's you! It's all your fault for telling Clara everything. You're just trying to provoke us. Do you think you can win her over like this? You're dreaming. She will never love you in a lifetime. I stood there feeling a deep chill in my heart. Daniel approached me, his voice as gentle as a breeze. I was the one who fell for you first. His words were few, but I understood their meaning. He had intentionally provoked Alex's jealousy over the years because he couldn't stand him, but he also didn't want to see me get hurt. That was why Alex was always so protective and hostile whenever Daniel was around. Daniel then spoke solemnly, explaining the contents of the folder. Your brother was my best friend. He knew Alex's true nature and didn't like him, but he couldn't bear to see you heartbroken. Alex was worried about his poor performance on the college entrance exams and wanted you to go to a lesser school with him. When he was discussing a plan to sabotage your results with a friend, your brother overheard him. Alex begged him not to tell you, but your brother refused. Furious, Alex drove recklessly, and in the ensuing argument in the car, he caused the crash that resulted in your brother's death. I could hardly breathe. My heart felt like it was being clenched by a giant hand, the pain indescribable. Memories flooded back, recontextualized by this horrible truth. Our communication breakdown while I was overseas was actually his guilt. 8 years of supposed affection was just blatant provocation and control. My constant accommodation of his whims turned into Alex arrogantly justifying his actions even after he had killed my brother. Tears streamed uncontrollably down my face, splashing onto the pavement. For all these years, I had loved a selfish, heartless person. A person who caused the death of the brother I cherished the most. I did not keep this incident a secret from my parents. Despite their pretense of happiness over the years, I knew my brother's death was a thorn that had been lodged deep in their hearts. On the phone, there was a long silence from the other end after I told them. I held the phone tightly, expecting them to at least scold me for bringing this disaster upon our family, for my brother's death. But they didn't. Through the phone, I heard muffled sobbing, and then my father's voice, vibrating with sorrow yet trying to sound calm, came on the line. Clara, don't blame yourself for your brother's death. I couldn't hold back my own sobs any longer. They flew back from their trip to Hawaii that very night. We hugged each other in the living room, crying for a long time. My brother's photo was displayed on the mantelpiece, his youthful smile frozen forever at the age of 24. My brother had always doted on me. I remembered those high school years when he would come home from work exhausted, but would still go out to buy the cake I liked from a shop that was far away. Watching me eat with a face full of cream, he would helplessly wipe my face and ruffle my hair, saying, Clara, just be happy and do what you want. I will always take care of you. After he left, I looked at my aging parents and abandoned my piano studies to pursue business management abroad. Our family's happiness had been shattered by one despicable person. My father gritted his teeth. I want him to rot in prison. Outside the courthouse, Alex's father stopped me. He bent his back, his eyes filled with tears. Clara, he said, Uncle knows he's wrong, but please, can you forgive him just this once? The old man, nearly the same age as my father, but with prematurely white hair, had always been kind to me despite being strict with his two sons. I suppressed the bitterness in my heart and walked past him into the courthouse, saying firmly over my shoulder, It's impossible. Behind me, I could hear him bowing even deeper. Inside the courtroom, Alex sat in the defendant's box, forcibly restrained by two officers. It was clear he had already caused a scene. Seeing me enter, he became agitated again, trying to stand up but being held back. Frustrated, he shouted at me, Clara, please save me. You still love me, right? You don't want me to go to jail, do you? Alex's father had not followed us inside, and Daniel was nowhere to be seen. Clearly, they had agreed to let me handle this matter personally. The judge's gavel failed to silence Alex. I glanced at the judge and then walked down from the plaintiff's area. Alex looked slightly pleased when he saw me approaching, challenging the judge with his eyes, just like he had done countless times with Daniel. But I stopped 3 steps away from him, looking at him with a completely blank expression. You professed your love to me only to hide your hatred towards my brother. You caused his death and then tried to prevent me from going abroad to save my family. When I returned, you were convinced I held no grudge against you, and yet you blamed me for leaving as if it were my duty to forgive you without question. I poured it all out, piece by piece, and Alex's eyes gradually filled with panic. He wanted to argue, but he couldn't find the right words. He just kept shaking his head and looking at me pleadingly. Clara, I truly love you. Clara, can we forget the past and start anew? We can go together to pay respects to your brother. I will bow to him. Please don't reject me. Looking at his face, my stomach churned. This disgusting person had occupied 8 years of my life. I didn't bother speaking to him anymore. Instead, I turned to the judge and asserted firmly, I will never forgive. The evidence was conclusive. Alex's trial soon came to an end. 25 years. That scoundrel got off lightly, my dad said, his eyes wide with anger. He should have been put to death. I shook my head. Letting such an arrogant person waste away in jail for most of his life, only to come out to a world that has left him with nothing, would be more painful for him than letting him die. And I won't let him have an easy time inside? Daniel was waiting at the courthouse entrance and gestured for me to come over. But when I stood in front of him, he seemed unable to speak. After everything we had been through, there was no way I wouldn't know what he was thinking. I beat him to it and said, Sorry, but what you're thinking, I can't do. Daniel paused for a moment, then smiled bitterly. So, I've ruined my own chances? I bluntly denied it. No. Even without all of this, I wouldn't be with you. I don't like you. It's as plain and simple as that. Even though Daniel might be a good boyfriend, he's just not right for me. I'm not going to compromise who I am for someone else ever again. Daniel nodded, his eyes filled with a mixture of regret and acceptance. This was also the end of his 8-year hope. Just as I was about to walk away, he called out to me. Can we still be friends then? I stared into his eyes. Our relationship is more comfortable as business partners. A good person like him shouldn't be held back by me. A few small things kept happening after that. Daniel slowly distanced himself from our business collaborations. Alex's group of friends also came looking for me. Alex had a bad character, but his friends were fiercely loyal. Kevin showed up with a bunch of his buddies to confront me outside my company building. When he saw me coming out, he loudly demanded, "Why won't you even see Alex one last time? He loves you so much. Do you have no heart at all?" I replied coldly, "Would you want to see an enemy?" He wanted to say something more but couldn't find a retort, his face getting red with anger. Loyal, but just as foolish as Alex. I had the security guards escort them off the property. Later, I married my current husband, Ben, and we had a lovely child. We met during a trip, hit it off immediately, and exchanged contact information. He's a photographer, passionate about life, and after we got to know each other for a while, he would often invite me to travel with him. We saw so many beautiful sights together. On days I had to work, he would go out and take photos. The mundane days of my life felt thrilling and new with him around. Eventually, when our child was in high school, he suddenly suggested going back to visit my old school. "I haven't been a part of your past," he said, "and I'd like to see what my little girl looked like back then. She must have been stunning." As we strolled through the high school campus, we passed by the honor wall. Ben suddenly stopped. He pointed to a photo on the wall, smiling brightly. "Clara, is this you? My Clara was such a beautiful girl." The girl in the photo had her hair tied up in a high ponytail, a bright, confident smile on her face, emanating a youthful energy. I was somewhat dazed looking at it. Although I had focused on my arts exams back then, I had never given up on my academic studies. My exam scores were always top-notch. I suddenly remembered Alex, who had been standing just out of frame when this photo was taken, making faces and trying to tease me. The memory from over 20 years ago rushed back, but his face was blurred. I realized I hadn't thought about him in so many years. He was insignificant. I walked up to Ben and lightly punched his arm. "What? Am I not beautiful now that I'm older?" Ben playfully held my fingers. "Of course not. My wife gets more beautiful every day." I glared at him, but I couldn't help but smile. Ben gently pushed me towards the honor wall and raised his camera. "Come on, let's take a photo of my little girl." I turned and stared at my 17-year-old self in the photo and gave a big, genuine smile for my husband. "Let's freeze time right here. 17-year-old me and 40-year-old me, every step we've taken counts."